My name is April, 32 years old, and I built a seven-figure online marketing business from scratch. I always believed family comes first, which is why I gave my parents $12,000 every month. 7 months into my pregnancy, life seemed perfect with my loving husband, James. But something always bothered me about my sister, Lisa, who contributed nothing yet received everything. That evening, I walked into my childhood bedroom to find all my belongings thrown into boxes. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button to join me on this journey of betrayal and redemption. Success didn't come easily to me. After graduating with my business degree, I launched my online marketing company from a tiny apartment, working 18 hours daily while friends enjoyed their 20s. The sleepless nights paid off when my strategies helped small businesses quadruple their revenue. Word spread quickly, and within 3 years, my client list expanded across 20 states. James entered my life during this upswing. A brilliant software engineer, he understood my entrepreneurial drive because he shared it. We connected instantly over coffee when I consulted for his tech startup. His warm brown eyes and patient nature balanced my ambitious personality perfectly. 2 years of dating led to a beautiful lakeside wedding, followed by purchasing our dream home in an upscale neighborhood. 3 years into our marriage, the pregnancy test showed positive. We had been trying for almost a year, making the 2 pink lines even more meaningful. James spun me around our kitchen, both of us laughing through happy tears. Our nursery planning began that very night, converting the guest room into a peaceful space with soft yellow walls and woodland creatures painted by my own hand. My financial support for my parents began 5 years ago, after landing my first major corporate client. Their reaction to my $50,000 contract surprised me. Instead of celebration, they expressed concern about how I would handle such money responsibly. That night, I decided to prove my capability by offering them monthly support. Initially, it was $3,000, increasing gradually as my business grew, until reaching $12,000 monthly for the past 2 years. My father, William, 58, had worked in insurance sales his entire life. A tall man with graying hair and perpetually tired eyes, he complained endlessly about difficult clients and demanding bosses. When my support became substantial, he took early retirement, citing stress though his position was secure. I felt proud giving him this freedom, imagining him pursuing forgotten hobbies and interests. My mother, Stephanie, 56, never worked outside the home. Her life revolved around keeping an immaculate house and cultivating social connections with neighborhood women. My financial contributions transformed her hobbies dramatically. Her casual interest in home decor became expensive obsessions. Crystal vases, handcrafted furniture, and original artwork filled their modest suburban home. Each visit revealed new acquisitions, which she showcased with prideful explanations of their exclusivity and cost. Despite living just 30 minutes away, I maintained my childhood bedroom at their house. It remained exactly as I left it for college: purple walls, bulletin board filled with academic achievements, and bookshelf overflowing with business and psychology texts. I occasionally stayed overnight, especially during long business calls or when James traveled for conferences. This arrangement worked perfectly. I maintained close family ties while building my own life. Every Sunday dinner became our tradition. I would arrive early to help cook while catching up on family matters. These moments in the kitchen with Mom sometimes rekindled the warm connection from my childhood, before achievements and money complicated our relationship. Dad would watch sports in the living room, occasionally shouting updates or calling me over to witness an impressive play. Holiday celebrations became entirely my responsibility, financially and logistically. Last Christmas, I rented a cabin in Aspen, providing round-trip flights, gourmet meals, and personalized gifts for everyone. My parents accepted this luxury without acknowledgement of its specialness, as though such extravagance had always been their due. Still, seeing their comfort brought me satisfaction, validating my hard work and success. My dedication to family extended beyond money. When Dad needed specialized heart medication not covered by insurance, I arranged consultations with top cardiologists. When Mom mentioned wanting to reconnect with her sister in Florida, I surprised them with an all-expenses-paid, 2-week vacation. Their happiness justified every sacrifice, or so I believed at that time. My sister Lisa, 24, lived at home with our parents despite being an adult. Unlike me, who worked 3 jobs through college, Lisa dropped out of community college after 1 semester, claiming it was too stressful and restrictive. Since then, she bounced between retail jobs, never lasting more than 2 months before quitting due to unfair managers or toxic coworkers. Lisa treated our parents' home like a 5-star hotel where she contributed nothing. Her bedroom and adjacent bathroom remained perpetually messy, with towels on the floor and makeup scattered across counters. Mom cleaned after her without complaint, the same mother who strictly enforced cleanliness rules throughout my childhood. This double standard became our family norm, though no one acknowledged it openly. The contrast between our approaches to life became increasingly apparent. While I saved for my business, Lisa financed shopping sprees with our parents' credit cards. While I scheduled family events months in advance to accommodate my work calendar, Lisa regularly canceled plans last minute when better opportunities arose. While I called our parents daily to check on them, Lisa ignored their calls unless she needed something. Our childhood established this pattern early. When I received academic awards, my achievements were expected rather than celebrated. When Lisa managed to pass classes with minimum effort, our parents rewarded her with expensive gifts for simply meeting basic requirements. I learned to seek validation externally through accomplishments, while Lisa mastered emotional manipulation for immediate gratification. Financial responsibility highlighted our differences most starkly. Lisa borrowed money constantly, with vague promises of repayment. $3,000 for a spontaneous trip to Cancun with friends. $2,000 for a designer bag she absolutely needed for job interviews. $1,500 to cover mysterious expenses she refused to specify. None of these loans ever returned to my bank account despite gentle reminders. Several incidents illustrated our fundamentally different positions within the family. Last Thanksgiving, Lisa borrowed my laptop without permission and spilled wine on the keyboard, rendering it useless during a critical project deadline. Rather than apologizing, she laughed it off as no big deal since I could afford another one. Mom sided with her, suggesting I overreacted to an honest mistake. Dad remained silent, retreating to his garage workshop to avoid conflict. Another time, Lisa borrowed my car without asking and returned it with an empty gas tank and mysterious dent in the passenger door. When confronted, she became defensive and tearful, accusing me of caring more about material possessions than family. This effective strategy quickly transformed me from victim to villain, leaving me apologizing for my reasonable concerns. I consistently swallowed my frustration for family harmony. When Mom called to explain Lisa needed new tires but couldn't afford them, I immediately transferred the money. When Dad mentioned Lisa was struggling with rent for an apartment she briefly maintained, I covered 6 months up front. My standard response became rehearsed. Mom, I understand. Lisa still needs time to figure things out. As my pregnancy progressed, Lisa's behavior shifted subtly. Her usual warm hugs became brief and mechanical. Her questions focused exclusively on my business success and financial planning for the baby. At my gender reveal party, she disappeared halfway through, later posting photos from a bar with friends. Mom defended her absence, explaining that baby events must be difficult for Lisa since she wasn't at that life stage yet, completely ignoring that the event celebrated her upcoming niece or nephew. The tension crystallized during a family dinner 6 months into my pregnancy. Lisa arrived 2 hours late, interrupting my announcement about launching a new division of my company. Without acknowledging my news, she excitedly shared she might apply for a receptionist position at a local salon. My parents lavished praise for this potential employment, spending 30 minutes discussing salary possibilities and work outfits. My business achievement, which would create jobs for 50 people, warranted only cursory congratulations before the conversation returned to Lisa's prospects. Driving home that night, I confessed to James my growing unease about family dynamics. His response was gentle but direct. April, they've always treated you like an ATM rather than a daughter. I dismissed his concern as overly harsh, unable to confront the painful truth hidden beneath our family interactions. That willful blindness would soon shatter under the weight of undeniable evidence. The day we announced my pregnancy remains vivid in my memory. James and I arrived at Sunday dinner with a tiny gift box containing baby booties and the ultrasound picture. Mom opened it, her expression shifting from confusion to realization. Dad glanced over, offered a brief congratulations, then returned to watching television. Lisa examined the ultrasound with unexpected intensity, asking immediately if we knew the gender and due date. Her follow-up question caught me off guard. So, who will inherit your company if something happens to you now? Over subsequent weeks, Lisa's interest in our finances intensified. She casually inquired about our life insurance policies, our retirement accounts, even the beneficiary arrangements for the baby's college fund we'd already established. Each question seemed innocent in isolation but formed a disturbing pattern. James noticed first, whispering concerns after Lisa spent an entire dinner discussing inheritance laws rather than baby names. My parents' behavior shifted simultaneously. Mom began canceling our regular lunch dates, citing various appointments that couldn't be rescheduled. Dad stopped answering my calls directly, texting brief responses hours later. Sunday dinners became sporadic, with last-minute cancellations blamed on everything from headaches to unexpected visitors. When we did gather, conversations centered around Lisa's latest interests or problems rather than my advancing pregnancy. This growing distance contrasted sharply with the warmth from my friend Natalie and mother-in-law Diane. Natalie organized my baby shower, researched pediatricians, and texted daily check-ins about my health. Diane converted her sewing room into a nursery for visits, stocking it with handmade blankets and carefully selected books she remembered from Jam's childhood. Their genuine excitement highlighted my parents' strange detachment. My pregnancy progressed with unexpected complications. Severe back pain limited my mobility by the 5th month. Anemia left me constantly exhausted despite iron supplements. Morning sickness persisted well into the 2nd trimester, forcing me to schedule client meetings around predictable periods of nausea. Through it all, I maintained my company's operations, conducting video conferences from my home office and delegating more responsibilities to my capable management team. The real crisis began with a casual comment from Lisa during a rare family gathering at 7 months into my pregnancy. Looking around my childhood bedroom where I occasionally stayed, she remarked how perfect this space would be for her new meditation practice. I laughed, thinking she was joking. Mom quickly added that Lisa had been considering moving her bedroom upstairs for better energy flow. The conversation shifted before I could respond, leaving me confused but not yet alarmed. 3 days later, Mom called while I was reviewing quarterly projections. Her voice carried an unfamiliar firmness. "April, we need you to clear out your things from your old room by this weekend. Lisa needs more space, and since you have your own home, it's only fair." The request blindsided me completely. Despite living with James, I frequently used that room when working late or when pregnancy discomfort made the 30-minute drive home challenging. I tried reasoning calmly. "Mom, I understand Lisa wants more space, but that room contains many of my important documents and sentimental items. Besides, I still use it regularly, especially now during my pregnancy when I sometimes need to rest between meetings. Perhaps we could find another solution that works for everyone?" Her response chilled me. "This isn't a negotiation, April. You're a grown woman with your own house. Lisa lives here and contributes to this household." Her emphasis on contributes confused me further. Lisa paid no rent and held no consistent employment. Before I could point this out, Mom ended the call abruptly, claiming another call was coming through. That evening, James urged caution, suggesting we visit together to discuss the situation reasonably. I agreed but felt a growing unease. Something fundamental had shifted in my family dynamic, something I couldn't quite identify but felt with increasing certainty. The foundation I had believed solid now revealed hairline fractures spreading in unpredictable patterns. Little did I know those fractures would soon become catastrophic breaks. The following Saturday, I drove to my parents' house alone. James had an emergency at work, but promised to join later. Pregnancy discomfort made the drive uncomfortable, my lower back aching despite the lumbar support pillow. I rehearsed a reasonable compromise during the journey, perhaps converting the rarely used dining room into a meditation space for Lisa, or helping finance a small addition to the house if space truly concerned them. Opening the front door with my key, I immediately noticed the unusual silence. Typically, weekend mornings filled the house with the sound of Dad's news programs or Mom's cooking activities. I called out but received no answer. Uneasy, I climbed the stairs toward my bedroom, each step increasing the strange tension building inside me. My bedroom door stood open, and the sight inside stopped me cold. My belongings had been removed from drawers and closets, haphazardly thrown into cardboard boxes stacked in the center. My desk had been pushed against the wall, its contents swept into plastic bags. The purple walls I had loved were already partially painted white, with painting supplies scattered across drop cloths on the floor. More disturbing than the disarray were the damaged items visible among the chaos. The frame of my college diploma had been cracked, the glass missing entirely. Photo albums lay open with several pictures removed. My collection of business books had been dumped unceremoniously, several sporting bent covers and torn pages. This wasn't simply relocating my belongings, this felt deliberately destructive. While surveying the damage, Lisa appeared in the doorway wearing painting clothes, surprise briefly crossing her face before settling into defiance. "What are you doing here?" "We didn't expect you until later," she said, crossing her arms over her chest. I gestured helplessly at the room. What happened here? Why are my things packed and damaged? "No one said you would start before we discussed this." Lisa rolled her eyes. "Mom told you we needed the room. You have your own house with plenty of space. It's selfish to keep this room when you don't even live here anymore." I felt my baby kick as my stress level rose. That doesn't explain why my diploma is broken or why my photos are missing. And I do use this room regularly. You know that. Whatever. She shrugged with exaggerated indifference. "You always make everything such a big deal. It's just stuff. And you can afford to replace anything that's damaged." The sound of footsteps interrupted our exchange. Mom appeared, her face hardening when she saw me. "April, I told you we would call when everything was ready for you to collect your things." Lisa stepped beside her, both forming a united front against me. "Mom," my voice wavered despite my efforts to remain calm, "why are my things being treated this way? Some of these items are irreplaceable. And we never actually agreed I would give up this room, especially not before discussing it properly." Mom's expression remained unmoved. "You've become so materialistic since making money, always worrying about things instead of people. Lisa needs this space, and you're being selfish." The unfairness of her statement struck me physically, forcing me to grip the doorframe for support. "I've given you $12,000 every month for years. I've paid for vacations, medical bills, home renovations. How can you possibly call me selfish?" "There it is," Mom snapped, her voice rising. "Always throwing your money in our faces. No one asked you to do those things. You chose to show off your success." The conversation deteriorated rapidly. I pointed out my consistent generosity while Lisa contributed nothing. Mom defended Lisa as needing support during her journey of self-discovery. I mentioned my pregnancy and need for occasional rest at their house. Mom dismissed this as manipulation, using my condition for sympathy. Each exchange escalated our emotions until we were openly shouting. I made a final attempt at reason, placing protective hands over my pregnant belly. "I'm 7 months pregnant. This stress isn't good for the baby. Can we please just calm down and discuss this like adults?" Lisa moved toward me aggressively. "Just leave already. This isn't your house anymore. You think you're so special because you're having a baby and making money. Newsflash, no one cares." I stood my ground, fatigue and principle preventing retreat. This has been my room for 30 years. I won't be bullied out of it without proper discussion. At minimum, I deserve time to properly pack my belongings. What happened next occurred with shocking speed. Mom grabbed a heavy crystal decorative piece from the hallway table, ironically, one I had given her as a birthday present last year. Before I could react, she swung it toward my head. The impact came with a sickening thud against my temple, instant pain blurring my vision as warm blood trickled down my face. Stunned and disoriented, I couldn't defend myself as Mom grabbed my hair and began dragging me toward the stairs. My pregnancy prevented the physical resistance I might otherwise have offered. I screamed, both from pain and fear for my unborn child, my hands desperately protecting my belly as I was pulled across the floor. Somehow I found myself outside on the front lawn, the door slamming behind me. Blood now flowed freely from the wound on my head, staining my maternity dress. Through tears and blood, I saw Dad appear on the porch, summoned by the commotion. For one hopeful moment, I thought he would help me, offer first aid, or at least call for medical assistance. Instead, he surveyed me coldly. This man who had once carried me on his shoulders through county fairs and taught me to ride a bicycle. Without a word, he turned back to the house, pausing only to say, "Don't come back unless you're ready to apologize for upsetting your mother and sister." The decisive click of the deadbolt followed his disappearance inside. I collapsed onto the manicured lawn my money had paid for, blood seeping between my fingers as I held my injured head. Pain radiated through my body, but worse was the shattering realization that my family, the people I had financially supported and emotionally treasured, had physically assaulted me during my most vulnerable state. My screams became uncontrollable, equal parts physical agony and emotional devastation. Mrs. Thompson, a 68-year-old retired nurse who lived next door, heard my cries. She rushed from her garden, horrified at my condition. Without hesitation, she helped me to her home, applied pressure to my wound, and called both an ambulance and James. Her kindness, from someone with no obligation to help, contrasted sharply with my family's cruelty. As we waited for help to arrive, she held my trembling hands and repeated reassurances. "You're safe now. Help is coming. Your baby will be okay." The ambulance arrived with wailing sirens, paramedics rushing to assess my injuries. As they stabilized my neck and loaded me onto the stretcher, I caught a glimpse of my childhood home through blurred vision. The curtain in my former bedroom window moved slightly, revealing someone watching. Whether Mom, Dad, or Lisa, I couldn't tell. What remained clear was the finality of what had transpired. Something irreparable had broken between us, something no amount of money or apologies could ever restore. The emergency room buzzed with efficient activity around me. Medical personnel connected monitors to track my vital signs and the baby's heartbeat. The rhythmic sound of my daughter's heartbeat provided the only comfort in this sterile, frightening environment. A nurse gently cleaned the wound on my head while another inserted an IV line for fluids and medication. Dr. Jennifer Reynolds introduced herself, her concerned eyes contrasting with her calm, authoritative voice. Her examination was thorough and gentle. She directed ultrasound technicians to check on my baby, waiting anxiously alongside me for confirmation that no harm had come to my unborn child. The relief when she confirmed normal fetal activity brought my first tears since arriving at the hospital. "You've sustained a moderate concussion," Dr. Reynolds explained, pointing to my imaging results. "The laceration required 8 stitches to close. The most concerning issue is your elevated blood pressure, which puts you at risk for pregnancy complications. We're admitting you for overnight observation to ensure both you and your baby remain stable." James arrived during this explanation, his face ashen with fear and fury. He gathered me carefully into his arms, mindful of the medical equipment surrounding us. I could feel him trembling with suppressed emotion. When he finally spoke, his voice emerged tight with controlled rage. "I want to press charges. What they did to you is criminal assault. They could have killed you and our baby." The hospital social worker, Patricia, entered during our conversation. She gently suggested involving police, explaining that assault against a pregnant woman carried enhanced legal penalties. She also recommended an immediate restraining order against my parents and sister. The situation had escalated from family disagreement to criminal matter with shocking speed. Lying in the hospital bed that evening, monitoring equipment beeping softly in the background, reality crashed upon me with devastating clarity. My parents hadn't just had a momentary lapse in judgment. Their actions revealed the truth about our relationship that had been denying for years. The financial support I'd provided hadn't been received with gratitude, but with resentment and entitlement. My success hadn't made them proud, but jealous and bitter. Sleep eluded me despite medication and exhaustion. Each time I closed my eyes, I relived my mother's face, contorted with rage, as she swung the heavy crystal piece toward my head. I heard again my father's cold dismissal as I bled on the front lawn. Questions tortured me through the endless night. How long had they harbored such hostility? Had they ever truly loved me, or had I simply been useful to them? What would they have done if Mrs. Thompson hadn't intervened? James spent the night in the uncomfortable visitor chair, refusing to leave my side. When morning arrived with its routine hospital activities, he made a series of calls, to his office arranging extended leave, to our insurance company, and finally to Sarah Matthews, his college friend who had become a successful family attorney. She agreed to meet us at the hospital that afternoon. Dr. Reynolds cleared me for discharge with strict instructions for rest and stress reduction, a challenging prescription given the circumstances. She scheduled follow-up appointments with high-risk pregnancy specialists and suggested counseling to process the trauma. I nodded mechanically through her instructions, still numb from the psychological wounds that overshadowed my physical injuries. Sarah arrived as promised, professional, and focused. Her questions were direct but compassionate as she documented the assault and preceding events. When discussion turned to my financial support of my parents, her expression shifted from sympathy to calculation. $12,000 monthly for how long? And you mentioned paying for renovations and medical expenses as well? I need to understand the complete financial picture, she explained, typing notes on her laptop. The ensuing conversation revealed something I hadn't considered. If my parents had used my financial support for purposes other than intended, or if they had manipulated me into providing it through deception, we might have grounds for financial recovery alongside the assault charges. Sarah suggested hiring a forensic accountant to trace the money Id provided over the years. "Let me make some calls," she said, stepping into the hallway with her phone. During her absence, a hospital security guard appeared at my door, looking uncomfortable. "There's someone insisting on seeing you," he explained. "Says she's your sister. Hospital policy prevents me from allowing visitors you've declined, but she won't leave. Do you want to speak with her?" James immediately refused, but curiosity and a desperate hope for explanation overrode my better judgment. I agreed to a brief visit, asking James to remain present and the security guard to stay nearby. Lisa entered cautiously, her expression unreadable. She stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed, avoiding direct eye contact. Her first words shocked me with their callousness. "You really screwed things up this time," she said, twisting the strap of her designer purse, another gift funded by my generosity. "I screwed things up?" My voice emerged stronger than I expected. "Mom assaulted me. Dad left me bleeding on the lawn. 7 months pregnant, Lisa." She rolled her eyes dismissively. "You always make everything so dramatic. Mom barely touched you. You're the one who refused to leave when asked." James stepped forward menacingly, but I placed a restraining hand on his arm. I wanted to hear whatever Lisa had come to say, however twisted her perspective might be. "Why are you really here, Lisa?" I asked directly. Her answer revealed the final piece of the puzzle I'd been missing. "Mom and Dad are freaking out that you'll stop sending money. They've gotten used to the lifestyle. The timeshare in Florida, Dad's boat, Mom's redecorating projects, none of that works without your monthly checks. Is that all I'm worth to this family? An ATM?" I asked, pain evident in every word. Lisa's expression hardened, calculation replacing her previous nervousness. "It's not just the monthly money, you know. It's everything else, too." "What do you mean?" Her next words exploded like a grenade in the quiet hospital room. "Your baby. Once she arrives, Mom and Dad were counting on grandparent rights. Your will leaves everything to your child if something happens to you and James, right? With Mom and Dad as guardians, they'd control everything. Your company, your investments, your house, until the baby turned 18. The implications struck me with physical force. My hand instinctively moved to protect my pregnant belly from this new, invisible threat. James looked stunned, then furious, stepping between Lisa and me as though she might physically attack. "Get out," he demanded, voice shaking with rage. "Now, before I call security." Lisa shrugged, message delivered. "Just so you know, they already consulted a lawyer about grandparent rights. Dad has the paperwork ready." She turned to leave but paused at the doorway. "Oh, and they emptied the joint account you set up for household expenses. Something about emergency funds." After she left, the silence in the room felt oppressive. The depth of betrayal exceeded anything I could have imagined. Not just violence born from momentary anger, but a calculated, long-term plan to potentially gain control of my child and assets. The people I'd trusted most had been plotting against me, viewing my unborn daughter as a path to financial control rather than a beloved family member. I broke down completely then, sobs racking my body as James held me. The foundations of my understanding had been shattered. Everything I'd believed about family, love, and belonging lay in ruins around me. Through my tears, one thought crystallized with absolute clarity. I would never allow these people near my child. Whatever it took, whatever resources required, I would protect her from the toxic environment that had nearly destroyed her mother. Natalie arrived that evening, bringing comfortable clothes and home, cooked food. Unlike my biological family, she demonstrated true love through practical support and emotional presence. She listened without judgment as I recounted Lisa's revelations, then shared her own observations about my family dynamics she'd been hesitant to voice previously. "I've watched them take advantage of you for years, April," she admitted quietly. "The way they expect your money but criticize your choices. The way your sister treats your possessions with complete disregard. The way your parents dismiss your achievements while celebrating Lisa's smallest efforts. I never said anything because you seemed determined to maintain the relationship. But honey, this isn't love. This is exploitation." That night, with Jame's help, I drafted messages to my work team explaining my absence and arranging temporary leadership coverage. Then, with Natalie's assistance, I began the painful process of documenting every financial transaction with my parents over the past 5 years. Bank statements, property records, gift receipts, everything that might help establish the pattern of financial support I'd provided under what now appeared to be false pretenses. Sarah returned the next morning with additional legal counsel specializing in financial fraud. Their recommendations stunned me. We should conduct a complete financial investigation into my parents' activities with my funds. What we discovered over the subsequent days would transform my shock and grief into something else entirely: cold, righteous anger. Recovery dominated the next 2 weeks. Physical healing came more quickly than emotional. The wound on my head closed, leaving a small scar partially hidden by my hairline, while the internal wounds remained raw and throbbing. Doctor-ordered bed rest kept me home, surrounded by the supportive presence of James, Natalie, and my mother, in-law Diane, who arrived from Colorado to help during this crisis. Diane's practical, nonsense approach provided exactly what I needed. She organized my medications, prepared nutritious meals specifically designed for third trimester pregnancy, and established a calm routine that slowly restored my sense of security. Unlike my own mother, her support came without conditions or expectations. When she discovered me crying in the nursery one afternoon, she simply held me, offering strength without demanding explanations or rushing me toward premature forgiveness. The hardest part to process was not the physical assault, but the calculated betrayal it represented. During quiet moments, particularly at night, my mind replayed years of interactions, reinterpreting them through this new, painful lens. Financial requests I'd interpreted as temporary family support revealed themselves as systematic exploitation. Emotional manipulations I'd dismissed as personality quirks now appeared as deliberate tactics. The narrative I'd constructed about my loving, if sometimes difficult, family crumbled completely. My legal team expanded to include financial investigators alongside criminal and civil attorneys. Their findings exceeded my worst suspicions. The forensic accountant discovered my parents had opened multiple investment accounts using funds I'd provided for living expenses. Property records revealed 3 rental properties purchased in their names using money traceable directly to my contributions. Most shocking was the discovery of an offshore account containing over $800,000, money that represented years of my hard-earned success, diverted to secret holdings. Sarah organized a strategy meeting at our home, bringing together the expanded legal team to outline our options. She spread documents across our dining table, creating a physical map of the financial deception. Her confidence provided comfort amid the overwhelming evidence. "We have multiple legal avenues available," she explained, indicating different document piles. "Criminal charges for assault and battery against your mother, with potential additional charges for your father as an accessory after the fact. Civil litigation for financial recovery of misappropriated funds. And preventative legal measures to protect your child from any future claims of grandparent rights." The restraining order already in place provided immediate protection, but Sarah emphasized the importance of long-term legal barriers. The grandparent rights threat Lisa had revealed represented a genuine risk in our state, particularly given my established pattern of including my parents in my life. We needed to document the assault and financial exploitation thoroughly to counter any future custody claims. After extensive discussion, we formalized our strategy. First, immediate cessation of all financial support. I contacted my bank that afternoon to cancel the recurring $12,000 monthly transfer scheduled for the following week. Second, formal legal demands for financial accounting and repayment of misused funds. Third, coordination with police to retrieve my remaining personal belongings from my parents' home. This last task proved particularly challenging emotionally. James volunteered to handle it without me, but I insisted on being present. Not to engage with my family, but to reclaim my agency in this situation. Sarah arranged police escort for the following day, ensuring both our safety and legal documentation of the process. The morning of the retrieval dawned clear and cool. James drove while I sat silently beside him, stomach knotting with anxiety that threatened my recently stabilized blood pressure. 2 police cruisers met us near my parents' neighborhood, officers listening carefully to Sarah's explanation of the situation and reviewing the restraining order documentation. Pulling into the familiar driveway felt surreal. The house looked exactly as it always had: meticulously maintained lawn, seasonal wreath on the front door, mother's carefully tended flower beds blooming along the walkway. Nothing external reflected the violent rupture that had occurred here. Officer Rodriguez approached the door first, knocking firmly while the rest of us waited by the vehicles. My father answered, his expression shifting from confusion to anger upon seeing me. The officer explained our legal right to retrieve my personal property, emphasizing the court order prevented my parents from interfering. Dad attempted to argue but retreated when Officer Rodriguez clearly stated the alternatives: cooperation or potential obstruction charges. James and 2 officers entered the house while I remained outside with Sarah and Officer Bennett. Through the open door, I glimpsed my mother standing in the hallway, arms crossed defensively. Our eyes met briefly before she turned away. That momentary connection carried no warmth, no remorse, only cold resentment that confirmed the finality of our separation. The retrieval process took nearly 2 hours. Many items had been damaged beyond repair, particularly sentimental objects from my childhood and adolescence. My high school yearbooks had been deliberately water-damaged. Family photos featuring me had been removed from albums. My collection of business awards had been broken and discarded. The destruction appeared methodical rather than random, targeting items of personal significance rather than financial value. As the last box was loaded into our vehicle, Lisa arrived unexpectedly, parking haphazardly across the driveway. She emerged shouting accusations about theft and betrayal, ironically projecting the very crimes my parents had committed against me. Officer Bennett intercepted her before she could approach, firmly explaining the legal parameters of the restraining order. Her performance continued until she realized the neighbors were watching from their windows and porches, suburban audience diminishing her dramatic impact. Driving away from my childhood home for the final time, I experienced unexpected lightness alongside the sorrow. Something parasitic had been excised from my life, painful in the removal but ultimately healing. The financial entanglements and emotional manipulation that had drained my resources and distorted my self-perception could no longer reach me. Protection extended not just to myself, but to my unborn daughter, breaking a potential generational cycle of toxic relationships. The legal process moved forward with methodical precision. My parents, confronted with overwhelming evidence of financial misconduct, attempted reconciliation through their own hastily hired attorney. Their offer, return of the offshore account in exchange for dropping all criminal charges, demonstrated their continued prioritization of self-interest over genuine remorse. Sarah recommended rejecting this offer, proceeding with both criminal and civil actions to establish clear legal precedent for any future attempts to access my child or resources. Diane suggested we consider relocating closer to her Colorado home, offering practical support without pressure. After thoughtful discussion, James and I decided to maintain our current residence, but purchased a vacation property near Diane's home for extended visits. This compromise provided family support while maintaining our independence and established professional connections. My company required attention after weeks of limited involvement. Rather than returning full time immediately, I implemented structural changes delegating greater authority to my management team. This reorganization had been planned for eventual maternity leave but accelerated under current circumstances. The leadership team exceeded my expectations, demonstrating capabilities that allowed me genuine rest during this critical recovery period. With Natalie's encouragement, I began sessions with Dr. Elizabeth Warner, a psychologist specializing in family trauma. These conversations provided critical perspective on my family history, identifying patterns of manipulation normalized throughout my life. Most importantly, therapy helped me process grief for the family I'd thought I had while establishing healthy boundaries for the family I was creating. The work was painful but necessary, like physical therapy after injury, discomfort leading to restored function. As my due date approached, we implemented comprehensive security measures at both our home and the hospital. The restraining order provided legal protection, but practical safeguards including security cameras, hospital admission under a pseudonym, and careful social media blackout added necessary layers of protection. These precautions, while sobering, allowed me to focus on the impending birth rather than potential threats. 2 weeks before my scheduled delivery, the legal system delivered its own kind of justice. The district attorney filed formal assault charges against my mother, with accessory charges for my father. The civil court froze the offshore account pending final judgment regarding financial restitution. Most importantly, family court documentation officially recorded the assault against a pregnant woman, creating permanent legal barrier against any future grandparent rights claims. The system designed to protect family connections now formally recognized when those connections became dangerous rather than nurturing. My preparation for motherhood continued amidst these legal proceedings. James and I attended birthing classes together, assembled furniture for the nursery, and established gentle routines we hoped to maintain after our daughter's arrival. Each positive action built resilience against the trauma we had experienced, transforming fear into purposeful preparation. We would not allow my family's betrayal to overshadow the joy of welcoming our child. The night before my scheduled induction, I sat in the completed nursery, rocking gently in the chair James had selected for midnight feedings and quiet moments. My hands rested protectively over my fully pregnant belly, feeling my daughter's movements beneath my palms. For the first time since the assault, I allowed myself to fully imagine the future, not one defined by what I'd lost, but by what I was building. A family based on genuine love rather than obligation or exploitation. A foundation of respect rather than manipulation. A legacy of emotional health rather than hidden dysfunction. I spoke softly to my unborn daughter, making promises I'd ensure were kept. You will be loved for who you are, not what you provide. You will be supported in your choices, not controlled for others' benefit. You will know your value comes from within, not from external validation or material success. You will be protected from those who would harm you, even if they share your blood. And you will never, ever question whether your parents' love is conditional. These promises, whispered in a peaceful nursery as evening shadows lengthened, represented my true reclamation of power. Not the legal victories or financial recoveries, but this fundamental commitment to break generational patterns. The ultimate rebellion against my family's betrayal would be creating something entirely different, authentic connection based on love rather than utility. In protecting my daughter, I finally learned to properly protect myself. 2 years have passed since the events that transformed my understanding of family. My daughter Grace recently celebrated her 18th-month birthday, toddling confidently around our home with curious eyes and infectious laughter. Her personality emerges more clearly each day, determined yet joyful, independent yet affectionate. James captures countless videos of her discoveries, creating digital memories that reflect our appreciation for each developmental milestone. My company has flourished despite the personal turmoil. The management restructuring implemented during my pregnancy proved so effective I maintained it after returning from maternity leave. This delegation allows me to work 3 days weekly in the office, while spending the remaining time with Grace. Success no longer requires constant presence, a lesson that might have taken decades without the catalyst of family crisis. My definition of achievement has expanded beyond profit margins to include life balance and emotional well-being. The legal proceedings concluded last year with outcomes that brought closure, if not satisfaction. My mother received probation and community service rather than incarceration for the assault, a consequence that seemed inadequate for the physical and emotional damage inflicted. However, the permanent restraining order and official record of violence provide ongoing protection more valuable than punitive justice. The civil financial case forced my parents to liquidate their improperly acquired assets, including the rental properties purchased with my funds. The court ordered restitution of just over $900,000, representing the offshore account plus documented misused contributions. This financial reckoning proved more impactful than the criminal charges, removing the resources that had funded their artificial lifestyle. Lisa faced no legal consequences, despite her participation in the deception. Her punishment manifested differently. Without access to my financial support, she finally confronted the reality of adult responsibilities. Last I heard through mutual acquaintances, she works 2 retail jobs while sharing an apartment with roommates. The designer clothes and luxury vacations have disappeared, along with her enabler's financial means. 6 months ago, I received an unexpected letter from my father. Written on plain stationery rather than the monogrammed paper my contributions once provided, it contained an awkward attempt at reconciliation. He acknowledged mistakes, though without specifying them, and expressed desire to meet his granddaughter. The vague language and focus on his wishes rather than my well-being revealed unchanged patterns beneath superficial remorse. After careful consideration and discussion with my therapist, I agreed to a limited meeting in a neutral location. James accompanied me to a public park where my father waited, visibly aged beyond the 18-month separation. Conversation remained stilted and surface level, focusing primarily on practical matters, their downsized living arrangements, new part, time job, adjusted expectations. When discussion turned toward Grace, I established clear boundaries. Any relationship would develop gradually, under my constant supervision, contingent upon demonstrated change rather than promised improvement. My mother attended a similar meeting 2 weeks later. Her apology seemed more genuine, perhaps because consequences had impacted her more directly. The loss of social status among friends who had witnessed our family breakdown affected her deeply. Unlike my father, she asked specific questions about Grace, her health, preferences, personality, suggesting potential for authentic connection rather than proprietary interest. These tentative interactions continue monthly, each carefully structured to protect both Grace and my own emotional health. Lisa remains the only family member who has made no attempt at reconciliation. Her social media occasionally features bitter references to family betrayal, narratives that invert reality to position herself as victim rather than participant. I maintain awareness of these posts through mutual connections but engage in no direct response. Her journey toward accountability remains her responsibility alone. The experience transformed my understanding of family beyond biological connections. Natalie, whose unwavering support never faltered during crisis, became Grace's godmother and regular presence in our lives. Her children and mine share playdates and holiday celebrations, creating bonds through choice rather than obligation. Diane visits quarterly, maintaining her independent life, while developing genuine grandmother connection with Grace. James's siblings complete our chosen family circle, offering Grace cousins and us authentic adult relationships. Perhaps most meaningful has been my involvement with support groups for women who've experienced family estrangement. Initially attending for my own healing, I eventually began facilitating sessions, sharing my journey toward establishing healthy boundaries without permanent bitterness. These connections with others who understand the complex grief of family betrayal provided community where isolation might otherwise have flourished. My relationship with money fundamentally changed through this experience. Financial success once represented validation and family approval, tangible proof of worthiness when emotional confirmation remained elusive. Now money represents security and opportunity rather than relationship currency. Charitable giving replaced family support, directed toward organizations helping women achieve independence from toxic relationships. This redirection feels like transformation of poison into medicine, using painful experience to prevent others' similar suffering. The small scar near my hairline serves as occasional reminder of physical trauma endured, but emotional healing continues as ongoing process rather than destination. Certain triggers, holidays, childhood locations, unexpected family references still activate grief for relationships lost and family dynamics imagined rather than experienced. Each instance becomes opportunity for growth rather than regression, integration rather than avoidance. Grace will eventually ask questions about her grandparents' limited presence compared to friends with conventional family structures. James and I have carefully discussed age, appropriate explanations that neither demonize my parents nor minimize their harmful behaviors. We hope to model healthy boundaries without perpetuating cycles of resentment, teaching her to recognize both the importance of family connection and the necessity of self-protection when those connections become destructive. The journey from victim to advocate required confronting painful truths about my family origins, while refusing to let those origins determine my family future. The $12,000 monthly I once provided my parents now funds Grace's education account, therapy that maintains my emotional health, charitable initiatives supporting vulnerable women, and experiences that build memories with those who demonstrate genuine love through consistent actions rather than genetic connection. Looking back on that devastating day when I found myself bleeding and abandoned on my parents' lawn, I recognize it as both ending and beginning, conclusion of illusion and commencement of authenticity. The family I believed I had existed primarily in my imagination, sustained through financial contribution and willful blindness to manipulation. The family I've since created exists in reality, built upon mutual respect, clear boundaries, and love demonstrated through supportive presence rather than material exchange. I've learned that true family isn't defined by obligation but by choice, daily decisions to support growth, respect boundaries, and prioritize well-being. Blood connection guarantees nothing beyond genetic similarity. The people who rushed to hospital during crisis, who helped rebuild my sense of safety afterward, who celebrate Grace's milestones with genuine joy, these represent family in its most meaningful form, regardless of biological connection. If my experience offers wisdom worth sharing, it's this: love never requires permanent sacrifice of your dignity, finances, or emotional health. Relationships demanding constant payment, whether through money, unquestioning obedience, or identity suppression, aren't relationships worth maintaining. True connection enhances rather than diminishes, supports rather than exploits, celebrates rather than controls. I've learned that family isn't always who we're born to, but who we choose to build our lives alongside. Sometimes the most courageous act of self-love is walking away from people who share your DNA but not your values. What seems like devastating loss can become doorway to authentic connection previously impossible under weight of toxic expectations. Have you ever experienced someone taking advantage of your generosity? What boundaries have you established to protect yourself while remaining open to genuine connection? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if my story resonated with you. Thank you for witnessing my journey from exploitation to empowerment. Remember, you deserve relationships that honor rather than deplete your beautiful spirit.